One.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the GD Report. I am D,
And I'm Gene.
and we are, it's Sunday, January the 10th,
Yep.
and we are in the midst of dealing with our attempted coup in the United States of America that never thought I would see it, but not surprised with some of the events of the last few months, the last 4 years.
Yep.
So we've got a big show tonight. We're gonna recap a lot of the things that have happened since our last podcast. Talk about some of the remedies that the Congress is considering. Talk about some of the other developments in the state of Georgia, and then wrap up with some things some comparisons to the past and where we see things going in the future. So, G-Man, why don't you get us up to speed on some of the most recent developments since we last spoke?
Yeah. So at least 52 people have been arrested. The death toll now is up to 3. There are still 4 or 5, I've lost count, that are in the hospital from their injuries.
I believe, I don't want to jump in here, but I believe the death toll is now 5, including the Capitol Patrolman.
Oh, you're right, because I forgot about the 2 that had the incidents, heart attack.
The medical emergencies, yeah.
Right. Yeah, one of those was a very interesting way to go, involving a taser, but you can look that up on Google if you want to know more about that.
Yeah, let's just say those nuts shouldn't have gone to the rally.
Right.
So we've got a death toll now. So we're not just talking about a protest. Obviously, you and I both know that this is an insurrection. It was an attempted coup. It was an attempted takeover of our Congress. But not just that. Now we're talking about, by all rights and accounts, murder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thoroughly suspect that we will see at some point murder charges brought against some people for what they did on January the 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we may even, depending on how the new Justice Department under Merrick Garland wants to get how aggressive they want to be, we may even see Mr. Trump arrested as an accessory. Because it's not his rhetoric that started it.
Yeah, I anticipate a commission to investigate this.
Yeah.
Will be set up, and I would like to remind all of our folks, particularly any of our viewers that are of the right-leaning persuasion, that the death toll now is officially larger than Benghazi, and we had multiple years of hearings about Benghazi, multiple testimony. In fact, Hillary Clinton went to the Hill and testified for 11 hours. So I'm sure they would welcome soon to be former President Trump to come back to the Hill and testify on his own for 11 hours.
Right. So one of the deaths was a Capitol police officer who was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, his name was Brian Sicknick.
Yeah.
And up until late this afternoon, President Trump had refused to lower the flags to half staff at the White House and other federal buildings, and it finally succumbed to pressure. Congress had done it yesterday in honor of Officer Sicknick. But yeah, beaten to death with when he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher by the terrorists.
Right. Yeah. There's no other word for those guys.
No, there's really not.
Insurrections, rioters is not strong enough because you can riot and be somewhat peaceful. But yeah, these guys were hell bent on a coup. They went in with zip ties, looking for specific groups of people, including Mike Pence, with, I believe, the sole intent to execute.
Yeah, well, there's video, and you and I were talking about this in the pre-production meeting, but there's video all over the place of social media where these folks shot video and then posted it to Facebook Live or posted it on different platforms. But there's one really chilling video where they're chanting "Hang Pence, hang Pence, hang Pence," This is the Vice President of the United States. And by all rights and knowledge that I have and everything that I've read and heard says that since Wednesday morning pre-rally, the president and the vice president have not spoken.
Yeah. I think you have to go all the way back to 1865 when you had an incident like this, when the night that they killed Lincoln and they tried to kill the vice president, they tried to kill the Secretary of War.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's, that's the last time we had an insurrection that was somewhat like this. And we ended up hanging about 12 people, as I recall.
Yep. And at least one of them spent the rest of their days in the prison on the dry tortugas as well.
I know Biden isn't a fan of the death penalty, but he might rethink that for a few months to allow this to go forward and people get their just punishment.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they had the zip cuffs, the fact that they were chanting names. The other thing that was interesting to me was that there's been multiple cases of this, but the one that stuck out to me the most was Assistant Majority Leader Clyburn. Jim Clyburn has two offices in the actual Capitol building, other than in the House of Representatives office buildings that are on the complex, but apart from the Capitol. He has a ceremonial office close to the floor, and then he has an office where he does the majority of the work with his staff about 4 floors up. And the ceremonial office is clearly marked with his name, his title. The office on the 4th floor is unmarked. These folks knew where his office on the 4th floor was. They went past his office on the 1st floor. They went straight to his office on the 4th floor. And that's where they tried to get in and tried to ransack it.
And that shows complicity by someone on the inside. I mean, someone had to tell them where that office was.
Yeah, I mean, there's for the loss of lives of Mr. Sicknick, I think there also has to be a lot of evaluation of the Capitol Hill Police Department too, as well, from a standpoint that there's video of them some officers taking selfies with the terrorists. There's pictures of them moving barricades and opening them. There's a whole lot more to this story that we may even find out some members, as you're alluding to, some members of Congress may be complicit in this as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me a bit.
So let's talk about now that this has occurred and we're all still kind of reeling in the aftermath of it. Congress is considering some action against the president.
Yeah, the House has drafted articles of impeachment. Diana DeGette, one of the members of the Colorado delegation, started that ball rolling. I heard Clyburn talking about it might be months down the road. They want to let Biden get his 100 days in before they actually send the articles of impeachment over to the Senate, which would ensure that they have a Democratic majority. But in order to get this thing to where they want it to go, which would be removal from office, which seems like a ceremonial thing, but if they do succeed in actually getting a Senate vote that votes to remove, that's going to preclude Mr. Trump from running in 2024 or anytime after that.
Yeah, he can't run for any federal office. And also, I believe it removes his pension and his security detail as well.
Right. Well, now, he's so rich, he's not really worried about his pension. And, after all, he donated for 4 years. He donated his salary.
Yeah, all those foreign dignitaries staying in the Trump Hotel and all the trips to Mar-a-Lago where we paid for Secret Service. I think the PGA had some news this afternoon, didn't they, about the PGA in 2024?
Yeah, they just pulled the tournament from this Bedminster golf club. So he's facing a lot of fallout over this, and rightfully so. But one thing I was going to say is the right wing is adamant that he's donated his salary because he came out and said, "Oh, I just donated my salary to this, salary to that." But there are mechanisms in place for how you have to do that. John Kennedy did it, but there is no evidence that Trump has done it at all. So, just another one of the lies that President Trump is perpetrated.
Well, you don't think handing out that big, that big
Cardboard
phone
check.
check doesn't count? Yeah, cardboard check doesn't count.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and I also believe they're trying to push. Uh, what I heard tonight was that they're going to introduce an amendment tomorrow or a resolution tomorrow, giving Vice President Pence and the cabinet 24 hours to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him from office. We both know that's probably not going to happen. To this point, Pence has not shown the intestinal fortitude to do it.
right.
I read an article today where an insider said he was trying to reserve it for in case something really bad happened.
What worse could happen? People die.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like I was trying to think of a good analogy for that, and I really can't think of one. I mean, yeah, it's.
I mean, I guess he could declare martial law, and that would be worse. But
Hey, I was going to ask you back on the trial after the first 100 days. If Trump, if he pardons himself preemptively, does that cover an impeachment?
I don't think it would. But most of the experts say president can't pardon himself. Now, whether he goes ahead and does it, but I would think that the Biden administration would take that to the Supreme Court and it would get overturned.
Yeah, because there's pretty standard law application where people can't be their own judge.
Right.
And in that case, he would be being his own judge.
I know there's been lots of reports about him asking his staff if he can do that, and at every term they've told him no, you can't. So now that doesn't mean anything to him. He's often going against his staff. So
yeah, and we know how he feels about norms or about doing anything out of the ordinary. If it's going to benefit him, he'll do it.
Yeah,
Let's
I don't know why Pence can't do the 25th Amendment clandestinely, because it's just a letter that each it's not one document they have to sign. They could do each individual letters. You only need six votes now that we've lost 2 cabinet members. So, or we will come tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, it's desperate times for sure. Let's talk real quick about the state of Georgia, because we obviously do have 2 new senators coming in that should be sworn in either by the 15th or the 22nd. And that'll give the Democrats the majority. Both Loeffler and Perdue now have conceded their races, which, imagine that, you lost a race, you conceded to your opponent, right? It's a shocking concept, which I think, honestly, this year will set the precedent where we'll see a lot less of that. I think we'll just see a lot of people on the right, when they lose their elections, they'll just say, no, I didn't, it was fake.
Right.
And I'm going to contest
it. The danger of what this guy's done. He's basically put all of the norms that govern society. He's basically taken them, put them in a bag, and thrown them in the river.
Yep. And so it's come out now. There's been 2 additional pressure points in Georgia where there was another phone call besides the phone call with Raffensperger, where he called the lead investigator and asked the investigator to find the evidence of fraud, and told him that if he found it, he would be considered a national hero. And then he also pressured the U.S. attorney for Georgia, who would be in charge of prosecuting those crimes, to resign, and then appointed somebody else to cover that territory, because he accused that person of not being loyal enough and being a never Trumper, even though Trump is the one who appointed him.
Right.
So there's a chance those charges could be included in the impeachment as well.
Here's my thought about the Georgia call. I've thought a lot about this. So Georgia, even let's say they found enough votes to give it to Trump, right? That's not going to put him over the top in the electoral college. So don't you think there were similar calls that went out to other states, say Arizona and Pennsylvania?
Well, I think the problem that Trump has in the other states is the fact that all those Secretary of States are Democrats. And so in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So his problem, what he needed one case where he could prove it. And then if he could prove fraud and overturn one election, then all the people on the right, think about how worked up they got with no evidence. Now, if they said they had evidence of one state, they'd say, oh my God, we need to look at all the other states.
Right. All the other battleground states.
Yeah, all the other states that Biden won, not any that he won.
Which, they gloss over the fact that in a lot of those states that Trump lost, other Republicans won their race.
Right.
So it just defies logic.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Which
leads us to interesting article in today's New York Times, an opinion piece by Timothy Snyder that talked about authoritarianism and the big lie.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have talked many times about anytime you bring up the word Nazi, people, particularly on the right, want to say, oh, all you do is call him a Nazi. You have no argument because you're just bringing that out. But there are some chilling comparisons to what the Nazis and Goebbels did with the big lie after World War I, and the way it was used, where you repeat a lie enough, people believe it.
It becomes the truth. Yeah. That was Goebbels' mantra.
Yeah.
And he started with the Jews. The Jews stabbed Germany in the back in World War I, and that's why they lost. They kept it going and made them the scapegoat for the start of World War II, and
the Great Depression, the economics.
They blamed them for everything. So they claimed they ruled the world, and they had this secret society, and and then they did their best to wipe them out.
Yeah, so that's the danger of the lies like this. And Mitt Romney, and what a fan I am of Mitt Romney. Willard Mitt Romney, he gave one of the best speeches on the floor the other day, because he said, if you really want to help the supporters of President Trump, if you really want to show them what our country and our democracy is about, the best thing you could do is tell them the truth. And tell them the truth that President Trump lost.
But they don't. Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley didn't want to do that.
No.
Josh Hawley in Missouri, he could probably run for governor and get elected today. They revere the guy. So they think.
Well, there's some cracks. There's some cracks there. I'm not gonna say I know everything about Missouri politics, but the Kansas City Star and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch have both come out and called on him to resign. John Danforth, who's the former senator,
got him elected.
Yeah, he's the one that campaigned for him. He came out with a statement and said that it was campaigning and working for Josh Hawley to win was the biggest mistake of his life.
Yeah.
So there's some cracks in the foundation there for Mr. Hawley. We've also got, why don't you tell us about some of the corporations that are feeling the heat, let's say.
Yeah, so there's 3 corporations, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Marriott International, and Commerce Bank Shares that have come out and said that they are no longer going to fund anybody who voted voted against Biden's electoral victory. So that would be Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley. I think there was 6 other senators and about 140 House members that won't be getting money from these guys. And that's a pretty good start, but we could use about 150 more companies like that.
Yeah, AT&T is a big one too.
Yeah, have they come out and said they're not going to support them?
Not yet. They've received some phone calls from some people we know, though.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So definitely desperate times, and I think that's why it's so important that the impeachment goes ahead and goes through, the fact that it could disqualify him from coming back and playing the martyr role
Right.
in
But you know, he
trying.
will. You know, if they don't do something, he'll be back in 4 years. Now, whether the Republicans have the wherewithal to block him, to keep him from the nomination.
So do you think there's going to be you think there'll be a split in the Republican Party, or you think they'll just all fold back together?
I don't know. I think there's going to be a split. I think the Tea Partiers and the Trumpers are going to go one way, and the Mitch McConnells and Mitt Romneys are going to go the other.
Yeah, I think I forget. I think Snyder called it the breakers and and basically and the opportunists.
Yeah.
And so, Colin Powell, I saw he resigned from the Republican Party tonight.
Oh, wow.
This afternoon. Steve Schmidt's already done that. You see a lot of leading people like Bill Kristol, George F. Will, some of those folks that
Well, George
could
Bush
have.
resigned like 4 years ago.
Yeah, you could have, but you could. My point is, you could have, 10 years ago, we could have had one of them on the podcast and had a decent argument with them about policy, and then if we'd been in the same city with them, we could have gone and had a beer with them, and been civil about it and
Right.
understood that we were just differences. And I consider George F. Will way to the right, and now he's to the left.
Right.
So, and they call him stuff like a rhino and things like that. And it's going to be interesting times for them as a party. Where do you, we're getting close on time here, but any predictions for the next 10 days?
Yeah, I predict that there's going to be at least one more insurrection attempt on or around Inauguration Day. I think Secret Service better make sure they protect Biden, because I think at least one person's going to take a shot at him. I think January 20th or thereabouts is going to be a pretty serious day, just like January 6th.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of serious things happening right now. Trump is supposedly going to go to Texas on Tuesday to tour his border wall and celebrate the fact that he's got 400 miles of it done, even though I think it's about 11,000 total miles
Right.
of border. It's pretty small amount that he's gotten done. He wants to use it as a reset, but I don't see how you reset out of this.
No, I mean, especially all the things that have come out since then, that, when he made that speech about, basically saying he was against the riots when everybody knew he was the one that started it. And then later on, it came out that wasn't really how he felt. He just felt he had to say that.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't see how you come back. So, and if the American people are stupid enough to elect him, I'm moving to Canada or somewhere. So can't take 4 more years of this.
Yeah. So I think, the best case scenario would be for someone to get him to resign. That would be the best case scenario. I don't see that happening.
No, not with this guy.
I don't see him giving up that way. I think the second best scenario would be obviously 25th Amendment. Third best scenario to me, impeachment's right there. But as we talked about, that's not going to get him out of the office. But a good scenario, if none of those things can get him out, would be for somebody to impose on him, fly your rear end down to Mar-a-Lago and tomorrow, and stay there the rest of your term.
Right. Well, and then, hopefully that case in New York comes up and he ends up going to prison. Because I think there's a lot of evidence of fraud there that they'll be charging him with as soon as he leaves the White House grounds, or as soon as his tenure's over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey everybody, let's hang in there. Let's do our best. If you feel so inclined, give your House of Representatives member a phone call. Let them know how you feel about this. Let them know where you stand on making a statement.
Yeah.
That this kind of behavior can't be accepted. It just simply can't be.
No. If
And
you're-
as always, we're still in the middle. I know in Oklahoma, where I am, we had our biggest day ever today of new cases
for COVID,
for COVID, new cases. So even though the vaccine is being distributed, I think we're starting to feel the effects of Christmas and New Year's.
yeah,
And we're getting people letting their guard down. Oh, we've got a vaccine now, so I can go out. And I know we actually had a family friend of ours that passed away actually on Saturday night from COVID. So it's still real. It's still there. And so everybody, please take precautions, distance yourself. Don't go in crowded areas unless you have to, and please wear a mask.
yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care.
Good night.